And I remember waking up and opening the account, and it was six figures, and I was like, oh. I mean, like every pilot really wants to. We all want to buy airplanes. And me and one of the buddies I work with, we wanted to buy like just a small like 182 or something like that, something similar, something bigger than a 172 to go putt around in, but still ultimately just kind of a fun little single engine airplane to fly. And then we originally had like a bigger group of 5 people to get into it, but people just had other obligations, so they couldn't afford to jump into that. And then as the group got smaller, we were just kind of lost the interest in it just because we didn't want to pay for the full airplane with just a couple people, especially when everybody's a charter pilot and never would have the time to fly their own personal airplane anyway. So it kind of sat around for a bit. And then just talking with other people, even within the company that were considering buying airplanes, what kind of sparked getting a King Air was our old chief pilot making a comment about how he wants to buy a Citation and put it on the charter. And we were asking him how that works, how you afford a Citation as a pilot. Like, how do you make that work when we can't figure out how to get 2 people to buy a 182? And basically the answer was, like, if you charter the airplane, especially for smaller ones, like, you usually make your money back, if not way more. So it's actually even cheaper overall than buying a little piston airplane to get something bigger, because you can charter it and make money off of that when you're not using it. So that kind of sparked the idea of us buying a King Air, and it just so happened that the one we wanted was the one that was at the company already. Our owner had bought a Mustang, and that was kind of his personal use airplane, kind of more or less retirement plan of something he can go out, take golfing, go out to Vegas to his house out there, and just enjoy having a small airplane like the King Air was, but something that goes higher, faster, works for him better. So he was going to sell the King Air off. He got a new interior on it, new paint, got it all kind of ready to sell. And then that's when we kind of started working our way in to buy it from him and keep it on the charter certificate. The nice thing is that our company has the approval to do right seat time in those single pilot airplanes. So even his Mustang, when he puts that on the charter certificate, he can have an SIC in there that builds time as an SIC. That's just to learn, basically. They're like, well, let's keep the King Air around. Like, we should buy it. A, it'll make us money because it's a chartered airplane, so when we're not flying it, it's making us money. And then B, it sticks around here and actually gets used as a trainer airplane, more or less, for people kind of coming in with low hours. So you can hire somebody at 300 hours, sit in the right seat, build 500 hours flying in turbine multi-time, get experience with that, and then once they have time to actually fly PIC, they also already have 500 hours in the airplane to fly around. So it's great for using that. So yeah, we worked it up and just finalized the deal a couple months ago of actually buying the airplane and actually getting it. And then the other arguably cooler part of the story is getting the money for an airplane, because no matter what, it's still going to cost you extra money. And as a pilot, especially with student loans, I didn't have 70 grand just really sitting around. At least I wouldn't have if COVID didn't happen. And so yeah, how that worked out was more or less by random, really. COVID had just kind of started. It was maybe February 2020, maybe a little earlier. I think maybe this winter of 2019 where it first started, where I was just sitting at home, got an email about on my Robinhood account, some investment account thing that I had played around with when I was an instructor a couple years earlier. I kind of ignored it for a while. So just as instructors, we just put some cash in there just to play around with stocks and kind of made a little game between each other who could make more money. But nobody ever made more than $1,000 on it, maybe. It was just kind of playing around with, and I forgot about it for a while. And I had gotten this email about something about information on my account. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about Robinhood. Opened it up, and there was $400 in there. I was like, oh cool, $400 I didn't know I had. So I was going to take it out and just put it in my bank account, close the account, and not worry about it. And then in the back of my head, I had one of my financial professors from Riddle. I remember him making some comment about invest while you're young, because if you lose it all, who cares? You're young, you have time to make the money back. I was just invested. Well, let's see what I could do with this. And I was just playing around with stocks again, and what ended up working out for me was options trades. I was just kind of playing around with them just because I was like, it's $400 I forgot I had, so I don't really care if I lose it all. So I was playing around with options trades, and I started making like some money off of it. And like I bought a big one with like Intel, an option that really paid off well. Like it turned basically the $400 into $8,000 in like a couple weeks. Like quick, and it became almost an addiction for a little bit, where I was just basically at that point like slowly but surely starting to like print my own money for a little bit. Like I had used that to like buy more options, so I could buy just bigger options for more money. They were more risky, but again, I had the same thought of like, if it all gets lost, then okay. If it's all gone, then it's all gone. But I didn't pull any money out of the account or anything. I just kept it in the account and kept playing with it. I bought like some Tesla options that paid off pretty well, more Intel ones. Like most of it was either involved in aviation or like tech stuff because I knew that. So it was just something I was involved in enough that I kind of had an idea of what was going on. And I kept playing around with it. And the big payoff one ended up being like, it kind of just slowly grew. Well, slowly relative to how it ultimately grew up until like February. Because I think I had like $20,000 in the account by February. Like beginning of February, it was $20,000 that I had not put a single extra dime into. It was just that initial $400 that I just kept doing options trades and stock trades. Basically being a day trader. I made like $20,000 in like 3 months. And then I remember like right as COVID was hitting, and like if Boeing was doing like a couple things, that their 787 was obviously having problems still. They were trying to like get their deal with NASA with their big like rocket launch, their capsule thing design. And I had bought like a couple of puts on Boeing stock, like big ones, because again, it was just money that I still was, in my mind, was just like, this is toy money. This isn't real $20,000. This is play money. This is a video game. This isn't my money. So I bought these 2 huge puts. Like I basically put the entire $20,000 in on these Boeing like puts that said like, hey, you know what? I know this whole COVID thing, like it hasn't really hit us yet, but I know it's gonna, like it's spreading out a lot. Like it's definitely, and aviation's like always the first one to get like completely destroyed when something big happens and people stop traveling. Like it's gonna hit. Boeing stock's gonna go down. Like, okay, I'll do a couple big ones, because again, I didn't really like, in the back of my head, I didn't really care about the money at the time that was there. This Boeing one, it was a big put that I had put in for hundreds of shares that I obviously did not have the money to buy hundreds of shares of Boeing, but I had the money to buy the contract for it. And I had done that. And my thought process, I remember like the night before it had jumped, I was thinking like it was going to expire in like a week. And I was like, I should have sold it earlier today. Like it had made the money back. Like I had spent like the $20,000 on this, and it had jumped up to like 40. I was like, I should have sold it. I shouldn't have gotten greedy. I should have sold it earlier today and just walked away with my money. And I chose not to. And I held on to it. And I woke up the next morning, and at this point I was waking up at like 5 a.m. every day, because that's when the market's open, so I could watch these. And I remember waking up and opening the account, and it was 6 figures, and I was like, oh. I think this is serious now. Like it was literally overnight. It had just jumped so much, because it was like that very week was when Boeing had a bunch of other products. Their 787 pop up. I think their 777X they hadn't announced yet, or was like in the very early stages, so that one really wasn't helping them out much. Their deal with their rocket deal had fallen through, so their stock had, I think I bought the contract that said in like a week from that day, Boeing stock was going to be worth like $140 or something. And if it exceeds the contract at all, it's basically just pure profit for you. It's like, because you still had agreed to whatever the other price was at the start of that contract. So it doesn't matter what it ultimately gets to. If it exceeds it, that's just profit for you beyond what you claimed it was going to be. And I think when I woke up that morning and looked, the Boeing stock, it was at its lowest at like $45 or something. So it had more than like doubled what I had agreed to on the contract. I was like, I need to get rid of these like now. I need to sell these now so I have this money. And yeah, I think between like late November of 2019 to basically March of 2020, in like a 3-month span, I had turned $400 into like 120 grand. And then I literally took all of it, just put it in like normal stocks, to just let it sit there and grow. I was like, I'm not going to take this out, use it for anything. I'm going to keep it right here. Because my first thought was like, there's obviously going to be big tax implications for this. Like, I know there is. I got to figure that out. Make sure that I don't get rid of any of this money before I figure out those taxes, so that doesn't screw me. And I took care of that, and then from there, it's just kind of sat in stocks for a while. And then once this Kinger deal kind of popped up, it was like perfect timing. Like, okay, like the market's cooling down a lot. It's going down, and I didn't really know what I was doing with the market. I'll be the first one to say that I got super, super lucky, just kind of playing around with money that I didn't even think I had. Like, it wasn't real money in my mind, so I didn't care that I was risking a lot of it. And yeah, it just exploded for me. Just good timing. But yeah, I didn't know enough about the market to like actually keep it profitable. To just kind of slowly cool it off with the market. Like, okay, like I should just take the money and put it somewhere else. And that's when this Kinger deal kind of popped up. It was like, oh, this is perfect. Like, especially if it's going to be chartered and I can afford like the monthly payment stuff on it for now. And then once it's chartering, it'll pay for itself. This is great. I could take the chunk of the money, put it into the down payment that I can now afford, and then I can do a few months of paying off the monthly payments if I have to, if it's sitting around not doing anything, and the rest of it's charter. Yeah, it was basically pure luck that it worked out that way.
Hey gang, here from Hangar Talk. Thank you so much for plugging into the channel, liking, subscribing. We appreciate all you continuous subscribers, and we can't wait to see you on the next one.